welcome to our webinar today on growing garlic in the North. My name is Lara, and I'm the Education and Outreach Director at the Minnesota State Horticultural Society. MSHS has been a trusted resource for information on gardening since 1866. We're one of the largest and oldest horticultural societies in the United States, and we publish the award-winning Northern Gardener magazine. If you're not yet a member, now is a great time to join. As a member, you receive a subscription to the magazine, discounts on classes, tickets to local home shows, and a special MSHS member card that gets you discounts at area nurseries. Just in time for the fall planting season and garlic bulbs. I'm here today with Michelle Bruhn. Michelle is a contributing writer for the Northern Gardener magazine. She is the owner-operator of Forks in the Dirt, and most recently, a book author. Michelle is going to share some of her tips and tricks on how to grow, harvest, and store garlic. Take it away, Michelle.
Well, hi guys, thank you. I am excited to be here. I am thankful for Laura and for the Minnesota State Horticultural Society for supporting us Northern gardeners in all the ways that they do. So thank you to Minnesota State Hort. So let's just dive right in to growing great garlic in the North. Again, I'm Michelle Bruhn. Forks in the Dirt is my local food love blog and kind of food hub, I would say. So it's all about growing your own, knowing your farmer, and then cooking great food with those harvests so we can get to eat local all year round. And garlic is one of those great ways to do that. So garlic lovers unite. If you are here, you probably love garlic. So you're not alone. People have been loving garlic for 7,000 years. So alliums, which include garlic, onions, shallots, have been grown for over 7,000 years. So in those thousands of years, there have been a lot of variations that have come along. People have hybridized different things, and this was all natural processes that happened. And now we have 700 different varieties, which is pretty cool when you think about it. And there's a lot of difference in flavor, and that's one of the things that you will get to explore when you grow your own. So that is probably one of the biggest reasons most people start growing their own garlic is for that flavor. There's a wide variety of flavor differences, and just like when you grow your own tomatoes, compared to anything you can get in the store, it's so much better. There really is that much flavor difference in homegrown garlic varieties compared to store-bought. Another huge reason to grow your own garlic is the food miles associated with most grocery store garlic. So about 80% of garlic in grocery stores comes from China, which is kind of mind-blowing. Think about the food miles that are associated with that, and then also you have no idea how it was really grown. So being able to take control of how you grow your own garlic is also another obvious reason. It makes a wonderful companion plant in the garden. Most alliums, so the onions, shallots, and garlic, really deter a lot of the common garden pests like voles, moles, mice, and even rabbits. Not going to say anything about squirrels because squirrels are crazy. They go after everything. But it really, because of the smell in the soil, it keeps a lot of those critters away. And I know people who plant garlic and onions around the edges of their garlic or their gardens, their vegetable gardens, as a way to kind of keep out some of those pests. Another reason I love growing garlic is that it kind of breaks some of the rules with typical gardening practices in the North. So for instance, you know, most things are kind of dead and dying and done in the garden in November, and we might still be getting to plant garlic bulbs. So digging into the dirt in the fall is another fun reason to grow garlic. It also is an annual that comes up super early in the spring, which gives us all hope as Northern gardeners. Another great reason to grow your own hardneck garlic, and we'll kind of go into the different varieties in a little bit, are those garlic scapes, and you can see those curly cues over there. And of course, the health benefits of garlic are well known. It's just a great health immunity booster all around. And when you have fresher garlic, you get more of those benefits. So really quickly, we want to talk about the two different garlic varieties that are generally grown out there, hardneck and softneck. So hardneck is what is typically grown up here in the north. It's just hardier overall in colder climates. We'll have bigger cloves with 4 to 5 individual cloves. So in each bulb, it has that hard neck, which means it sends up a flower shoot with the scape, so that you get those scapes and then eventually bulbils, which we'll go into in a little bit too. Hardneck are definitely tricky to braid because they have a hard, stiff neck, which we will go over that really specifically too. So they're hard to braid, but I can't say impossible because I did it one time because I'm that stubborn. And then also the cloves, because they're bigger, their paper dries different. Those like the papery coating around them, or the skins, people will call it too, they definitely peel easier than the soft neck. But soft neck are great too. They're typically better grown in warmer climates. They have smaller cloves and more of them in each bulb. So 4 to 5 in hardneck and 15 to 20 in softneck. However, there are a couple varieties of softneck that are really well suited to growing in the north, or I should say better suited. Excuse me, I'll be growing in Chilean red this spring or this fall for the first time I'll be planting. I'm very excited. It'll be my first time growing a softneck garlic. So that is kind of one of the starter pack variety for growing softneck if you want to try it in zones 2, 3, 4. Softneck also will store for longer, easily for 12 months, where hardneck is a little bit harder to store much past 7, 8 months. So when we're talking about getting these growing, we want to always start with whatever we're growing with the best seed possible. And for garlic, that means the bulbs or the cloves, I'm sorry, the individual cloves are what you're going to be planting. So that's what we are talking about when we talk about garlic seed. Early fall is a great time to start looking online for local seed companies that have good garlic. I would just shout out to all of our organic seed companies here. When you buy organic seed, you are buying an overall stronger seed, or in this case, clove, because they were grown in a situation without the help of herbicides or pesticides, so they had to fight and do what they needed to do to come all the way to seed on their own without the help of herbicides or pesticides. So they've just got that little bit of an edge, which you can then use in your garden, and it helps you grow better. Also, the more localized seed you can get, the better as well, which is why it's awesome when you're growing your own garlic to be able to save your own garlic seed. And we'll get into that more in a bit. So another trick to growing great garlic is keeping it a really sunny location, making sure they're getting at least 10 hours of sunlight to grow the biggest, fattest bulbs you can. pH, you want to get between 6 and 7, and you don't need to worry too much about this. Basically, if other vegetables are growing well in that area, garlic will grow well there too. One thing that I would say garlic is a little bit picky about is not wanting to have wet feet or stay wet in their root system. So you want to make sure the soil is pretty well draining, so a little sandier rather than clay for sure. And we're going to want to give it a nice rich soil, so lots of nutrients in that soil. And usually we'll do that by adding compost to the top of the soil. You can add some nitrogen in the spring once the shoots emerge to give it an extra boost, but if you've added a lot of compost, you probably don't need to do that. The other trick about growing great garlic is to really keep that whole garlic bed well weeded. That is one of those things where mulch, which is also part of the planting process, helps out with a lot. And now we'll get into the actual planting tips and tricks. So we're going to want to wait. I know it's hard. We get excited about this, planting garlic, when we get the bulbs in the mail and we've got them at home. We're going to really want to plant those. We have to wait until after the first hard frost or freeze. And we all know that climate chaos is happening, and we're getting more bigger swings in our weather patterns. So I'm going to just put a shout out here to waiting a little bit longer than you might even think for planting your garlic. So we don't want it to get in and start growing in the fall before it really gets a chance to get covered in snow and go to sleep for the winter. So we want to wait. you know, it depends each year so much on the weather, but I'm usually planting at least after the 1st of November. So we want to weed the garden bed well, really well before we plant, and then we're going to add some compost, and even working that compost in a little bit. We're going to dig down a good 4 to 6 inches deep and plant 6 to 8 inches apart. So the 6 to 8 inches is maybe a little bit tighter than most people recommend, but for me and my gardening, this is what's worked really well for me. And I have maybe a little bit smaller space than like big garlic farmers, and I don't want to waste those extra couple inches times 50 or whatever. And one thing that I've improved on myself in the last couple of years is getting a grid and being really intentional about planting exactly the same to maximize my use of space. So on that note, I've got some videos here. I hope I can play. There we go. To show you really specifically the planting that I did.
So planting garlic bulbs then is pretty easy as long as you get the whole deep enough. You want to go about 4 inches where the tip comes, 4 inches down. And that should keep us nice and happy. Next up is mulch.
So sometimes it's just nice to see physically, you know, in person, or I guess not in real life, but over a computer is close, to see how far down that is and what that looks like when you're planting. And then next is after I've added the mulch and cover.
Well, here's the garlic bed, all tucked in under a good couple inches of straw. So what I ended up doing is putting, like I usually do, some spent chicken straw underneath. So chicken bedding, also known as poopy chicken straw. very, very good for the garlic. You can leave it on there because it has time over the winter to decompose and get rid of any bacteria, especially by the time you're having anything garlic by next June. July, August. So there you go. It's all tucked in. I've got it covered over for curious, nasty little squirrels and such. There we are, all tucked in.
I apparently like saying all tucked in a lot, but I like that video because it shows you I really did have like 4 inches of straw. And what I do is clean out my chicken coop in order to put that on top of my garlic. So that works because it's got months and months. It needs at least 4 to 5 months to decompose out any bad bacteria. But this is like a slow release fertilizer and mulch on top of my garlic, which I think is one of the tricks for my great grown garlic. So that, and making sure you put something over the top, some extra chicken wire or something so that the squirrels don't dig up all your hard work, because man, that is just frustrating. So then you've got it planted, and all you need to do is wait for spring. And you're probably not thinking about your garlic all winter long, but before you know it, in spring they will be popping up. And it is like one of the funnest things to see those garlic shoots that you probably had kind of forgotten about popping up. They are not as early as chives and rhubarb, but they're close after it. And it's just one of those things that gives you hope as a northern gardener, right? And I have this picture here with the snow over it because I wanted to make sure that you knew, as a new garlic grower, you don't need to worry about it getting cold and snowing on your garlic after it's come up. It is perfectly fine until it gets down to maybe, you know, those low teens. Then you might want to throw out, if they're as big as that where the snow is, you know, that was like 20s, 30s, that is no problem for them. If it gets down to the low teens, go ahead and throw some floating roll cover or a sheet or something over it to protect them. And then you'll see here that I leave my mulch in place in place all season long. So it really helps keep the weeds down because we weeded really well, but you know, weed seeds always come in. It keeps the weeds down and it really keeps it, the moisture in there. So even this year when we had a ton of drought time, I only watered the garlic bed once. And I mean, my garlic harvests were great. So once those plants have been growing for a while, come sometime around mid-June, we'll get to harvest garlic scapes. So scapes are technically a flower stalk that shoots up from hardneck varieties. Softneck don't have this because they're soft, so they don't have that flower shoot coming up. It's kind of like when your lettuce bolts or other things kind of send up that central shoot stalk. That's what a garlic scape is. However, these happen to be delicious. So you're going to want to remove these, not just because they're delicious, but you're actually helping your garlic grow better by removing this. So you remove them to focus that energy back down into the bulb and get a bigger bulb in the long run. And you're going to want to harvest them when they're curled over. And let's see, you eat them as a vegetable, as a side dish, or as kind of an extra, like you would do grilled onions on something. You can have grilled scapes. And when you grill them, it really takes the high zing content of those fresh garlic scapes and mellows it way out. It almost tastes like garlicky asparagus, a lot of people will say. So here's another picture. I thought this was really good because you want to go ahead and snip that garlic scape right where those leaves are going to come out, as low down there as you can. And then another really good tip is to make sure you remove the buds and that straight part on the right of that picture there, because the buds, the flower buds, especially if you're fermenting garlic scapes, another favorite, the flower buds can sometimes harbor some bacteria because of the way they're closed up like that, and you don't want that to wreck your ferment. I also just remove them even if we're grilling because I don't like the texture of them, but it's your garden, your choice. So you can try it out a couple different ways. And maybe let me know what you think, because I love hearing how people love garlic scapes. Can you tell I love garlic? Goodness. So if you don't cut that garlic scape, it will eventually send up a flower. And I mean, alliums in general are so funky and wonderful to look at. So I, of course, had to try this. So this was one of my favorite varieties of garlic that I've been growing for a few years. I let it go ahead and send up that scape and send up the flower buds. I let it completely mature and then set the seeds, which are called bulbils. And they're the cutest little miniature garlic cloves there. So they're about the size of a large grain of rice. So they're tiny, and I have now been growing these out for 3 years, and I will someday get full cloves of garlic and full bulbs, but not for another couple years. But it's been a really fun experiment, and this is one way that garlic farmers increase their garlic stock. So finally, you will be able to harvest your garlic, usually sometime around the end of July in Minnesota here in our zone 4. So we want to wait until 3 wrappers are brown. That's like the typical common information. This will depend a little bit on the season that you've had. If it's been a dry season, you're going to see that dry out sooner. And if it's been a wet season, it might not dry out quick enough. So we're vegetable gardeners. Of course, we have to dig around a little bit. So we're going to dig up one and see what it looks like. So that's what you can go on, if the wrappers don't work for you as well. And so this one is a great example of the bulb split in half here is a great example of a decent sized bulb that probably was harvested during too much rain or after too much rain. You don't want to, if you can avoid it, harvest when it's dry. So if you're going to get a rain and you're like, oh, maybe my garlic is ready, pull one up, see what it looks like, and make your decision on that before it's going to be really wet. This was a year where it was pretty late and it was going to be raining for like a week, and I just had enough time to let it dry out, because you want to harvest the garlic and then start drying it. So we want to harvest it when it's drier rather than wetter. This is also a really pretty picture of how purple the garlic can be when it's fresh out of the ground. And there's kind of 3, maybe more, main varieties of hardneck garlic. There's porcelain, which is the white, rocambole, which is usually a spicier, and then the purple stripes. And this is obviously a purple stripe. So after we've harvested, we're going to cure our garlic. We want to leave the leaves, all that green stays on there as we're curing, because some of that nutrition and energy is going to still sink back into the bulb. So we want to get it out of the sunlight in a well-ventilated area, in all separated so they're not touching, so that they dry evenly. In 10 to 20 days, you should have good dried cured garlic, kind of depending on the humidity. So you'll be able to tell if it's fully cured when the papery skin is easier to peel off of that. If you try to have garlic that is a little bit before its time, you'll notice that you can't tell almost between where the skin of the garlic is and where the garlic bulb itself starts. But it's totally fine to use that garlic and enjoy it. It's delicious. That's what I've been using in all my pickles. But to give you an example, I wanted to kind of go over cleaning your garlic. And it's also a really good time to sort your garlic. So I want to show my screen. I hope I'm showing my screen now. So this is kind of an idea of 3 different sizes of garlic. Oops, 3 different sizes of garlic. So these are the big guys that you want to save to seed to plant again next year. These are the guys that you will store long-term, that middle size, and I usually cut this top about like that. I just think it's easier to break off, and if there's any nutrition still going into the bulb, it might help a little bit. And then these little guys, sometimes there's bulbs that you'll have that are, they're just, they have the paper is wonky on it. You can tell it's not sealed well. These are the ones that you're going to want to store first or eat first and store shortest. So the smaller bulbs are a good place to start. So you kind of end up sorting your garlic along the way. And then I just wanted to show too, this is what a garlic plant will look like before you've cleaned it, before anything. So this is very dried out, but you can also leave these like this for a while before you go ahead and clean. And cleaning just means brushing off the outside, taking off the top, and then you also do want to snip these roots so that in case they're harboring any bacteria. So I'm going to show screen again. So I think I'm back on. All right. Storing garlic. We want to store our garlic in the dark around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 45 to 55% humidity. And those are optimal. So if you can't get it exactly in there, it's going to be okay. The cooler, don't store it in your refrigerator because that will actually send it into grow mode. It will think it's cold in winter and get ready to start growing. And too warm, it might actually shrivel a little bit, but it's going to be fine. You're going to be able to keep it really well. I usually put it in like a basket of some sort. They say to put it in a mesh bag, like one of the onion bags that you have. And hardneck will store for about 3 to 9 months, which is a really big range. And it really just depends on how big the bulbs are, how tough that papery outing is, and then your storage conditions. So no matter what we do, we will eventually probably need to preserve our garlic in a different way. So once you see a little bit of that green growth sticking up out of the middle of the garlic clove, you'll want to go ahead and try and preserve it in another way. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can freeze whole or minced. So you just peel the papery stuff off, prepare it however you think you'll use it, get it into a freezer bag, and you're ready to go. Or you can dehydrate it, and the larger bulbs of the hardneck make this process a lot easier than the smaller bulbs. So another reason I really have loved my hardneck garlic. You can go ahead and slice it on a mandolin, lay it out on a dehydrator sheet, and dehydrate it until they're nice and crisp and crunchy. And then if you really want to go the extra mile, it's so worth it, you grind it up and make your own garlic powder, which sounds crazy until you've tried it. It's amazing. You will never want to grow or buy garlic powder again. So that is really the whole circle of it. That is starting in the spring, getting you growing all the way through harvesting, curing, and then hopefully using all your delicious garlic. I hope that this gets you excited enough to try some different varieties of garlic. Find your favorite, and if you want more information on growing garlic and growing all the things, you can follow me, find out some more information at forksinthedirt.com. And of course, thanks to Minnesota Horticultural Society for supporting all of us Northern gardeners in our growing habits. There's much more information from them as well at northerngardener.org. So go out there and grow some great garlic, guys. Thanks. Have a great day.